Hello guys, Alan here and welcome to the part 2 of the Detailing in Revit series I'm having on YouTube. And like I've always been saying in every single video of mine, if you're watching this video and you haven't liked this video already or you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do make sure you subscribe to my channel because you do not want to miss out on the tutorials that I'll be dropping here on YouTube. Alright, so this is the part 2 of our Detailing in Revit course, and I've got whole lots of courses and series we are going to be talking about on YouTube, so you do not want to miss out. So please do make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you like this video as well, and you can drop a comments in the comment section and I'll do well to respond to each and every single viewer out there. All right, so we are going to take off on what we have to do in today's video, and in today's video I'm really going to be talking about the detailing tools in Revit. Now, just as my role model, my mentor, Balkan Architect, has taught me, I'm going to teach you guys the same way. All right, so we are going to talk about the detailing tools. It's also very important. You need to know how to use all those detailing tools and how you can use them, how you can put this here, how you can get this done, how you can do this, do that. All right, so you need to be able to know how you can do all of those stuff so you can be able to master detailings in Revit, how you can execute and present absolute perfect detailings inside of the Revit software. So this part is really going to be about the detailing tools. All right, so I'm going to start off quickly, and first of all I'm going to break things down into smaller parts. All right, so we are going to start off with let's say a first set of a detailing tool, and then we're going to move on to the next set. All right, so the first thing we are going to talk about with our detailing tools is going to be detail lines. All right, so how can you be able to draw out detail lines in Revit? All right, so I'm going to show you guys a little bit and let you know the functionalities of these detail lines that we have in Revit. So now, before you can access your detail lines, you need to move all the way into the annotate tab right on top of that ribbon. All right, your topmost ribbon, you need to make sure you find the annotate tab, and then you just click on that annotate tab in there. When you head into this detail section you see in here, all right, you're going to notice in here we have the detail line. All right, this is basically the line Revit is going to give you anytime you want to detail something out. All right, now I think I always use this line even for any kind of thing I'll be doing. So any kind of detail or any kind of line you'd want to draw in Revit, whether it be in the drafting view or any of these views you have in here, all right, anything you want to do in there, this is the line you're going to go for. We have the detail line. Now Revit has two types of lines in there. It has the model line and then the detail line as well. Now let me get back into the architecture tab, and then when I come in here, you're going to notice we have in here the model line. Now the difference between the model line and the detail line, I'm not going to assume my viewers out there already understand this. I already have a tutorial on this, but I'm not going to assume you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm going to assume none of you know what I'm talking about. So just by the way, maybe you might already know. So now the difference between the model line and then the detail line is when you use the model line to draw a line in here. All right, what that means is that it is a model line. It means that it's going to appear in every single view you have in here. So if I should draw a model line around my project, it's going to appear in every single view. It's now going to appear in a 3D form. All right, so with that model line I can actually go around the line. How crazy is that? So you can use this model line to draw a line, and then it appears in a 3D form. All right, so it means that when I draw the line somewhere around here, it's going to appear in all my views. All right, it's going to be all over, all in all my views. It's going to be a model line. That means that I can see that in the 3D form. So it's going to also work like the walls I have in here, the ceiling I have in here, the chairs, the doors I also have in here, but they are lines. All right, let me click on that so you see. So it's going to ask me to pick a plane, or I can draw that on the work plane. So I'm not going to do any of this. I already have a tutorial, so you can go into my channel page and then you scroll down, you're going to find that tutorial channel in there. Right, so I'm going to cancel out of that. So this appears in a 3D form, but when you come into the annotate tab and then you have this detail line in here, with this detail line, it's just going to be a two-dimensional line. All right, it's not going to be in a 3D form. So when I use this detail line to draw anything in here, all right, when I draw anything in here, it's not going to appear in any view again. It's going to be only in this view, which is the section 2. All right, these detail lines are view specific. They don't go into any other view unless you copy them in here and then you go and paste them in another view. But apart from you doing any of that, it's going to appear like a two-dimensional something. All right, so it's just going to be only in this view. So that's the difference. All right, so we have this detail line here where we can actually use this line to draw out and probably represent our details inside of Revit. All right, so now I'm going to select this and I'm going to delete this, and we are going to use that. I'm going to select that detail line and show you guys something. So I'm going to click on that detail line, and then when you head into this line style in here, now you're going to notice we have in here, now you're going to notice some of these lines in here. We have the overhead lines, we have the thin lines, we have demolished lines, and we have the medium lines. Now I'm going to show you guys the difference. So I'm going to start with the thin lines. So you can select the particular line, and then of course you are going to have your draw tools. Revit is always going to give you your draw tools when it comes to something that we have to draw out. All right, so even with walls we have this, even with roofs we also have this. All right, so I'm just going to draw a simple straight line in there. All right, so you notice we have this line in there. Okay, so we are going to go back into the detail line, and we are going to select the medium lines. All right, so we are going to select here and then bring this here. All right, so now I'm going to make sure I turn on my line style, my thin lines on, and still get back into detail line, and I'm going to select my wide lines. All right, so I'm going to put this here and still get back into the detail lines, and you're going to notice we have several types of lines in there. With me, to be honest, I really don't use any of those types in there unless I have to represent something in there. All right, I mostly 75% of times just use the thin, the medium lines, and then the wide lines in there. All right, so we have all these other lines styles in there. With the hidden line, you're going to notice it's going to come out this way, with just short dashed lines. All right, with the demolish line, you're going to notice we have something like this in here, and also with the center, let me just bring this something around here so you notice this is the kind of line this is also going to give us. Let me use hidden lines. Yes, this is the one that is going to come off in the green form. All right, it's the same hidden line in there, but this is just green. All right, so let me get back into detail line and just click on my line style, and you're going to have this several types of lines in there. All right, so now let's say all of these lines do not play out for you. All right, let's say you do not want to use all of these lines, or you want to use a different kind of line. All right, maybe you want a line which is much thicker than even the wide line family Revit is going to give you. You want a line that is much wider like this. Like now, traditionally what everybody is going to do is just going to right click on that and go into override graphics in view, get into by element, and then you are going to want to select the width in there. All right, so we can actually specify a color for just this line. So I can specify a color for the line, click on OK in there, and with the pattern I can actually change the pattern in here. All right, the pattern of this line. Now you notice it's just a solid straight line. I can actually change the pattern in there. I'm not going to touch that. And with the width, let's say I want it much wider. Now this wide lines I have in here, I believe is 5 millimeters wide. All right, so I think that is what the Revit system gives it. Now I'm going to crank this up a little bit. Let me send it to about 8, and then I'm going to hit on apply, hit on OK in there. Now this is what most people will do if you want to actually increase the line widths of your lines in there, or maybe if any of those lines do not play out well for you, you can actually select all of those lines and then you change them and change their style as well, and also specify colors to it. Now that is going to be a tedious process. All right, now there's actually a way you can also create a particular line just like this. When you head into the detail line, there's actually a way you can also create your own line style, and it's also going to appear in here where you can actually click and then you can quickly just draw in that detail that you want. All right, so let me show you guys that way. So now what you want to do now is you want to head straight into the manage tab. All right, with the manage tab is where you actually manage all every single thing inside of Revit. That's where you can be the manager of the software. Okay, so that's what it means. Now that's not what it means, so do not take that serious. All right, so you want to find the manage tab, just click on that manage tab in there, and then you're going to see in here we have additional settings. All right, so you can just click on that additional settings, that's on the drop down menu in there, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of annotation tools that you can actually customize to your own will. And in our case, we want to do something of the line style. All right, we don't want to do line width, we want to do line style. We want to create our own type of line. So I'm going to click on that line style in there, and when you click on this drop down menu in there, now you're going to notice we have this pop-up menu. All right, now you're going to see this plus sign right beside it, so you can click on that plus sign right beside that, and you're going to have all of those lines we saw in here. Now you saw I mentioned the line width for that is traditionally Revit is going to give it 5 millimeters. Now you notice with the thin lines is set to 1. Where's medium lines? Medium lines is set to 3, and with the line pattern is always solid. So we can actually create our own kind of line in there. Maybe if we are detailing and we need a particular type of line, we don't have to now go to override by graphics and then do all of that to work. Maybe if the lines you are going to be drawing is going to be a lot. All right, so we do not want to go through all that mess, even though it's going to solve the problem. What you can do is you can create your own line style in there. So you can head straight in here, then you go to new, and we are going to call this of course we are going to call this Alan Architecture. Let's call this Alan, and I'm going to set subcategory. Of course it's going to be a line, and we are going to click on OK. And with the line width, let's say with this I want it to be 7. All right, so now you notice when you click on the drop down menu in there, this arrow in there is going to give you all the other line widths that have been used in here. All right, which you can select from. If you watch my schedule series, Revit actually things like that. All right, it thinks like that. Anytime you input something in here and then you click in here, it's going to give you an option where you can actually select what you inputted there. That's how the software actually thinks. All right, maybe you want to use the same thing. So I have my Alan here, and with the color I think I'm going to go for this color. All right, so I'm going to click on OK in there, and with the line style I'm going to go for something let me just go for something. Let me use this type of line. I don't really know what all of those line pattern styles are, but I'm going to select any of one. I think this sounds better with the name Ponto, so I'm going to use this one. And okay, so we are fine, and we can hit on apply, and then we have our line in there. Alan is set in here. Did I change? I changed this to 7. All right, so 7, and this is perfect. So I have my line in here and set to this color, this star, apply, and let me get back. Okay, so it's still 7. I thought maybe when you hit on apply it's going to change that. I would have found another way for that in there. So let's just click on OK in there, and now let's get back into annotate and click on detail line, and the line style you notice we have Alan in here, so we can click on Alan and let's just draw that line in there. What? So this is what that Ponto line is. All right guys, so you can go ahead and play along with that in there. Now you notice anytime I click I still have the option to still draw the lines. That is because this chain icon is ticked. All right, if I should untick that and I should click, I don't have the option unless I click again. All right, if I click I don't have the option unless I actually click again, and unless I actually click again, and if I click I don't have the option. So if I select the chain in there and I click and click somewhere, I still have the options to still keep going. All right, until I hit the escape or I hit on this modify icon in there. All right, so I'm going to click on that, and then I can get away with that. So guys, so this is how you can actually specify your own line style if any of those lines do not actually work for you. All of these lines, all right, you can actually modify your own line style in there. All right, so that's how cool Revit works with that. So I'm going to DE all of this out of my view, and we are going to move on to the next tool, which is going to be our field region. Just right beside our detail line, you're going to notice we have the field region in there. All right, so this field region actually serves as sort of like a pattern where we can actually use to fill out patterns in our design. All right, now you notice in here with my walls, it already has the filled region inside of those walls, showing those diagonal lines inside of all of those walls, which means that those walls has been cut. All right, this is a section view. All right, it means that this wall has been cut into half, so it's going to represent in a section view. Now, how I actually did this was I just hit on VG on my keyboard, or you can just go into your properties panel in here and you can scroll all the way down, and then you can get into here where we have the visibility graphics. The shortcut is VG, and you can just click on edit, and then we have this in here. So you can make sure you scroll all the way down to where you have walls in there, and you notice in here I've already specified a pattern. All right, so I'm going to take that off. All right, so you see in here pattern, and I'm going to select no pattern. All right, so that I can show you guys how you can actually use the field region to do this. Okay, so we can click on OK, hit on apply, and hit on OK in there. So you notice my walls no longer have that pattern to actually show that detail of my wall being cut into half. There's something we call representative techniques. All right, is you actually representing using all of those hatch tones and all of that stuff to represent exactly what you have in here. All right, so you notice my wall no longer have all of this in there. So what you can do now with using the field region is, when you see the field region icon in there, you can click on that, and we have this field region and we have maxed region. All right, so with the maxed region, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually do that. So when you place the mouse pointer right on it, you notice we have just this view in there. So the maxed region is actually going to cover, let's say we have another field region in there. All right, the max region is what we can use to actually cover and extend that view of maybe a hatch that we have in there. But in this case, I'm going to demonstrate all of them. I'm going to use the field region, and I'll use the max region so we see what that is. So I'm going to click on field region, and obviously we are going to have our draw tools. So we have our draw tools in here, and we have the opportunity to now select any kind of hatch or patterns that we want to use to fill the particular region that we are going to draw out. All right, so I'm going to draw out first of all, but before I do that, you can go into the line styles. All right, now you're going to notice we have in here invisible line. Now what this means is that the boundaries of your lines that you're going to draw, all right, the boundary of the line that you're going to draw is going to be invincible. All right, it's going to be invincible. It's going to be invincible. All right, so you're not going to see the boundary in there. Now let me show you guys what that is. So let me select thin lines first of all, and then I'm going to click in here and just bring this here and bring this here, and also cut this here. Now TR, okay, this is cut out, and let me just select any diagonal crosshatch. Let me just use any of this in there. So let me use diagonal down and just finish this. Now you notice my boundary. Let me move this into this view. All right, just move this somewhere here. Now you notice my boundary after finishing this has the outline being visible. All right, it looks like a wall light in there coming from an electrical background. It looks like a wall light. You notice it has that boundary in there being visible, which is using the thin line style we selected. All right, so I'm going to go back in here, and with this we are going to use the invisible line in there, and just click on this and also just draw this somewhere around here. All right, and then I'm going to finish this and finish this. All right, now you notice our line in here, the boundary is invisible, but then the pattern hatch we are using inside is going to be visible. But then with the inside, with the boundary in there, we are not going to have it in there because we used invisible line style. All right, so that's one thing you should know and you should be able to use in there. All right, so I'm going to select all of these and just DE out of there, and still get back in here and get back into this and just change this to, let's say, thin lines. All right, I can still use the invisible lines, I don't mind. I can still use the invisible lines, and make sure this is checked on, and we can just come in here and then we can draw this all the way to somewhere around here. All right, so I have this somewhere around here. Okay, so let me leave it somewhere around here. Now when I head in here, you notice I have all of these field region patterns. We call this hatches. Yeah, you know, we have all of these hatches in there. We have the head hatch, we have all of those hatches in there. I'm going to show you guys how you can actually customize and create your own hatching styles in there. All right, you can create your own hatch tools. So first of all, I'm going to basically use the diagonal down. All right, and I'm going to finish this. So now you notice when I use the invisible line, it's actually even covering the model line of the exact wall I had in there. You know, when I zoom out, you notice that line is becoming invisible. All right, we have, because we use the invisible line in there, but we are going to have the pattern lines in there. All right, those hatches in there. Now you can actually create and specify your own hatch. Well, all you can do is you need to make sure you have PAT files, or the path files for all of those hatches you need in Revit. And guys, you guys are fortunate to have me on YouTube and you are learning from me. So I have like getting to thousands of hatches and path files you can use in your project or any kind of project that you want, and it's going to come at a fee. So you can actually send me an email and I'll just tell you the fee and I'll just send it to you. It's going to be very affordable. I'm coming from Ghana, Accra. I don't really need anything from anyone. I just want to be able to help each and every single one of you guys out there. So I have close to 1,000 patch files where you can actually use for each and every kind of project you want. And I also have close to I have to close to like 5,000 Revit families. So you can send me an email and it's going to come at a fee, and I'll send you all of those families and all of those hatch files as well. All right, so now let's say I want to specify a hatch file. I want to actually customize my own field region. All right, so I can make sure I go into edit type in there, and when you head into edit type, we have the foreground field region in there. Right, so we can click on this in there, and you notice we have this in there which we are using. So I can change this to diagonal, and you notice right at the top in here we have model, where you notice we have this which is looking like stone flooring in there, which is perfect. I can use this for a floor slab on a site plan, and we have this brick in there which is also looking perfect. We can use this for like grass pathing, and we have the earth in here, and we have the stone Caroline. So we have some families loaded up into the software. This is crazy. I loaded this up myself. All right, so now let me show you guys how you can actually load in all of those path files. If you do happen to have one, you can actually go online and take the pain to download them. All right, I've already downloaded close to 1,000, and I'm not sure you guys can get close to 1,000 online. So let's just get into drafting. And when you head into drafting, you're going to see this icon in here, new field pathing. So I'm going to click on that icon, and we have this in here. All right, we have this in here, which we have. Then we can now change the name. We are obviously going to call this Alan, and we can now go into custom. All right, now when you head into custom, you now have the opportunity to browse and find all of those patch files. So I'm going to click in here, and I have them on my desktop, and I'm going to go into hatches, and I have all of them in here. So you notice I have all of those path files in here, and you can use in Revit close to 1,000. They are about 969, I guess. Yes, so I have thousands of those files in there. So you can actually go in here and select or load all of this into your software and find the particular one that is going to work for you. So you can create a template, and then you can load all of this inside of your software. All right, so this is perfect. Let me just use any of these path files I have. Let me just use the concrete and click on OK, and I have this in here which is representing the concrete. Now what I usually do is I usually change the scale. All right, when you load it in, it's going to deceive you. You're going to think it's going to be visible, but it's not going to be. So you can change, you make sure you change the scale to be 0.05 in there. I think 0.05 will do the trick. Pattern name already exists, so let's get into close. Let's just add something in the UI. All right, so let's click on OK. We have our pattern in here, so the pattern name already exists. It's being this name. All right, so we have this concrete pattern file we just loaded up. Click on OK, hit on apply OK in there, and just finish this. Let's get into edit type, and we have this in the foreground pattern, click right here, and okay, let's get back into our pattern, and we have this. Let's change the scale, guys. I think the scale is what's happening to that. Let's bring it to something around 5. Okay, hit on apply. Okay, and apply. Okay, all right. So I think the pattern, it was too compact, so you can change that to 0.5 or 0.10. all right, so now you notice we have a concrete wall in there, which is going to be showing in our section. So this is how you can actually use those patterns to actually create those details in there. All right, so now let's say we have a lintel beam running through this concrete wall we have in here. We still have a beam, all right, a lintel beam running through it. For example, you are not going to have it running through a concrete wall, all right, definitely. So let's say we have a concrete beam also going through in there, and you want to represent that with a solid fill black color in there. All right, in my part of the country, in Accra, Ghana, we actually represent all of these concrete, especially reinforced concrete, with a solid color. All right, we use solid colors to represent concrete. All right, yeah, that's what we use the solid color for. So now let's say I want to do that in here. All right, when I already have this pattern file in there, this field region in there, what I can do is click on this and then go into maxing region, and then I can just click in there. Let me just change this and use the hidden line. So I'm going to draw this out and finish this, and just make sure I finish and select this in there. So just hit on tab key to select that. Select this. All right, this is selected. So we have this in here where we can actually use to clear all of this out, and then we can use the solid fill to put in that column in there. So you notice it clears that part in there. So we've maxed out that region in there. We can actually bring this in a little, and it kind of clears and signifies that we just have the concrete running on the sides. All right, so this is one way where you can actually do that in there. You can send this back and you can bring it forward. So you can send this back and it's going to be at the back of this field region in there, or we can bring it forward. All right, so that's one way you can actually do that with this field region tool we have in our detail component stubs in there. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is I find very interesting. Now I actually discovered that from my mentor, Balkan Architect. All right, so it's what he called the Linework tools in Revit. All right, now you're going to find out Linework tool in Revit. It's going to be very, very useful. Trust me, guys, I've used that to kind of like escape a lot of traps in Revit, so it's going to be very, very useful. Now the Linework tool is you want to find that in the modify tab, and then you're going to notice we have this icon in there which you call the Linework. All right, so we have this Linework which is LW, and you can click on that icon in there, and when you click on the icon, you notice we have this invisible lines in there. All right, invisible line. All right, we have this invisible line, and we have medium lines, basically all the line styles. Now you remember we created this line in the beginning of the video, so we have also this line in there. Now let's say I want these lines to be let me make sure my thin lines is toggled off. All right, so now let's say I want these lines to be to have the invisible line. All right, I don't want these lines to show. All right, this is actually coming from the model, all right, the wall, and I don't want the line there to show. That is where maybe my line work is going to help me, because if I come in here and I select the invisible line, and then I just click on that line in there and click on it again, now you notice even though I have that wall in there, the line that is going to be on that wall is not showing. All right, unless maybe I hover my mouse pointer in there, then you notice there's actually something in there. So this is how that line 2 works. All right, now you notice nothing shows in there, so it looks like there's no wall at the back. So this line work 2 is very, very handy. So let's say I want to make it medium lines. All right, so I can come back in here, select this, and then you notice those lines come back in there. All right, we have the lines coming back in there, which is perfect. So you can manipulate that by using your line work tool. So let's say if you have any model element and you want to erase some of their lines, you can actually come in here and then choose the invisible line, and then you can erase all of those lines, even though it's a model element, all right, whether it be a system family or a component family. So you can actually use the line work tools to actually change the line widths or the line styles of any component you have inside of your software. All right, that's actually very beautiful. So we actually thank Revit for this line work tool icon. It's very useful. The day Balkan architect actually taught me, I was struggling when it comes to when it comes to roof plans, hiding some stuff in there. This line work tools came in very handy. All right, so that is how you can use this line work tool. So you need to make sure you know that you have these two at the back of your head, guys. Make sure you have these tools at the back of your head. So now the next tool I'm going to talk about is the text tool. All right, now you're going to find the text tool. When you head into the annotate tab, you're going to notice we have the huge alphabet A in there. All right, so that's our text tool. Anything that we are going to do inside of the software, we would want to make sure we label, or would want to make sure we write some inscriptions, some notes down, and put all of those stuff in there. All right, so this is where we can do all of those magic by using this A text tool. Or you're going to find in this ribbon the small caps, no, you're going to find the small uppercase A in there. All right, so this is also going to serve as the text tool, and this is also going to serve as the text tool. The shortcut for it is TX. You can see that in there. So you can use TX to actually access your text tool. So you notice in here I've actually labeled some stuff in there, which I have the parapet wall cap, so I have this in there. So now let me show you something. So you can actually click on any of them, whether it be this or this. So you notice all is selected. So I can start writing in there. So let me just write in Alan. All right, so I can put in here Alan, and we have this Alan in here. Escape, and I can still select this, and we can choose to add a leader like what we have in here. All right, when I say leader, I do not mean an actual leader. I do not mean an actual leader. All right, this line you see with the arrowheads in there are what we call the leader line. All right, so we can choose to create a leader line. Now we can choose to make it straight, and we have this in there, or we can choose to send this to the other side. All right, so it depends on the icon you choose. So whether you're going this side, this direction, you can just use this one. If you're going this direction, we can use this one in there. All right, so now if let's say I want to remove the leader lines in there, I can just click on this, and then it removes them in there. All right, and we can just click on this, and this one is going to give us some sort of like the spiral one in there. All right, using the spline line in there, and we can remove that and bring this also, and we can choose to bring this somewhere here, and then we can create this angle, give it some sort of like a right angle vibe in there. Now you notice I kind of did that for every single thing in here. I find this very cool. All right, so you can actually do this, and then you can label every single thing you have inside of your Revit software. You can also align this, make sure your weddings in there are aligned to the center, and you can also middle align them as well. All right, and we have also this here where you can actually change all of this other stuff in there. So I can click in here and remove the leader line, and then I can add this in there. I'm going to show you guys later on in the video how you're going to make maximum use of all of this in there. All right, so you can create a leader line in there, and you can just basically move it to practically anywhere that you want. All right, you can move it anywhere that you want, anywhere. So you notice I'll switch from going to this direction to this direction. All right, by just moving this somewhere here, and then I just move this point somewhere here. So I can switch to even different directions without using this, but this is quite easier. So I know I'm going here directly. I just click in there. All right, so that's how you can use your text in there, and you can get into edit type. And when you head into the edit type, like I said in the earlier on in this video, I'm not going to assume my viewers out there understand what's happening in here. So with a text font style, you can actually change that in there. You can use any text file in there. So what my role model actually loves using is the Century Gothic in there, and you can make it a bold. You can check or uncheck that if you want. Italic, you want it slanted, you can actually check this. If you want to underline, you can also check this, and that's what it is. So you can hit apply, hit on OK, and we have this in here, right? So I can get back in here. I'm going to check the bold and click on OK. So we have this in here. All right, so we can actually click on this, get into edit type. Now, one very interesting thing we have in here is the background. Now you notice it's set to transparent. We have opaque and we have the transparent. Now I'm going to put it on transparent and show you guys something. So this is set to transparent, and if I should escape out of there, if I should just move this to somewhere around here. Now you notice it, since it's set to transparent, you notice it's being transparent, as in you notice we can actually see through the roof in there, and it's making it things kind of difficult for me to be able to read. That is if you have some weddings inside of your model. All right, so you need to make sure you move them to spaces where it's not going to be in there, which is going to make it very difficult to read. So how you can actually make it easy to read and also leave it here is by actually changing it to opaque. So we can click on that, get into edit type, and we can change this to opaque and apply OK in there. And you notice it leaves kind of like a white background and centers only that, so it makes this kind of easy to read. All right, so that's what the transparent and opaque in there actually mean. All right, so we can change this back to transparent. I like to keep them at transparent. All right, I like to keep them at transparent. I don't want to have that white box in there, so I can put this back where it was and somewhere around here. Okay, so this is what we have in here, and we are going to move on to the next detailing tool, which is the detail components. All right, so now we are going to talk quickly about the detail components, and I'm going to make sure I brush you guys through some stuff and I wrap up, and then we move on to the next part in there. All right, so now what you want to do in this part is when you head into this icon in there, so you're going to talk about the detail components. So now when you head straight, when you click on the annotate tab, and you're going to find this in here. Now you notice with mine is grayed out. Some of you are going to have yours already there like that. Some of you are also going to have it grayed out. So when I click on the drop down menu in there, you're going to notice we have detail component, we have repeating detail components, and then we have legend components. All right, so I think I've spoken in the earlier part about the legend components. So I've already spoken about this one, so I'm going to show you guys what this one actually means. All right, so now let's say escape out of there. Make sure you also save your file in there. Make sure you always save. Now let's say in modeling out this building, and when I was modeling this building and I didn't have the time to actually specify, let's say, the right materials and also putting the right field patterns in there to actually show all of those details that I'm going to need inside of this file in here. All right, that all of those details that I'm going to need. All right, so with the wall, let's say with the wall I had some gypsum plasterboard on the surface. All of those details, if I was not able to insert all of them in modeling the building when I was creating the wall layers, if I was not able to do that, this is where the detail component is going to help me do all of that in there. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a call out for one, and then we'll work with that. All right, we are going to create a call out for one, so we are going to use this one. So how do we create our call outs, guys? I've already showed you guys how to create call outs. So we are going to go into view, and we are going to make sure we find our call outs in there, and we are just going to create a simple call out all the way to the ground floor somewhere around here. All right, so I have this simple call out in there, and you can just double click in there, and it's going to send you to that view in there. So I'm going to turn off my shadow, and I have this in there. All right, so now let me just move all of this stuff to somewhere around here. Okay, so this is perfect, and I have all of this in here now. So you notice all of those dark lines didn't appear in here. That's because they are not model elements. They were actually detail objects that I actually drew in there. All right, so we are now going to do the real work. All right, so you notice this is just the ordinary floor slab. It's not even having the filled color in there. So we are going to start with the detail components, and then we move to the repeating detail. All right, so I'm going to get back into, make sure you head back into annotate and click on that drop down menu in here, and then we are going to click on the detail component. Now you notice we are going to have yes, we are going to have this beam in there. All right, so this is not what we want. Now you obviously know with scaling, with callouts, it's actually to enlarge that view, so you'll be able to draw out some nice details in there. So when you click on that drop down menu in there, you notice we do not have any better detail elements in there. That is because we haven't loaded some in. So Revit is by default going to load this in there, which they will be termed as system families, because they are always going to come with the Revit software. Now you need to load some more families in there so you can actually use inside of your project. All right, so we are going to escape and we are going to find this icon right there, all right, which is the load family. So on any aspect or on any workings or any project or any field that you need some components or some families, you always have to load some in, because you do not have the right details. Revit won't give you, Revit obviously doesn't know what you need, all right, so you have to load them in. That is why it's very good to create your own template, especially if you're working in a construction company and you know the kind of stuff you use, all right, that you use regularly. You need to create a template, a Revit template that already has all of this stuff inside, so you do not have to now go and load in components in, load in families, go and look for them and put them in. No, you already created all of this template, and anytime you are designing, you just open that template and you have absolutely everything. So I'm going to drop a series on how you can actually create Revit templates. All right, it's going to be a whole series, so I'm going to teach you guys that when we get into that type in there. So Revit is going to definitely by default going to send me into the Imperial system. I'm going to go a little bit back, so I'm going to click on this icon and I would want to find English in there. So I want to change this to details in there, and what you want to find now is we want to find detail items. All right, so we click on detail items and we have all of this stuff in here. So let's say I want to do concrete. I want to use a concrete, create a concrete detail for that wall in there, or let's say maybe a lintel beam, all right, or maybe for the floor slab. So I'm going to click on the concrete in there, and I'm going to use with the floor slab, I'm going to use the reinforced. All right, and I'm going to click on that reinforced, and I'm going to change this to thumbnails. I really don't know what this is, so you have this in there which is going to bend. All right, I don't need this. I don't have something that is going to bend in there, so we have reinforced. Let me change this back to details in there, and precast concrete. Click on this. Okay, so now let's check what this have for us. We have all of this stuff in there. All right, I think some of this stuff are going to work for me. We have the precast beams, rectangular top type. Okay, so I think solid flat in there, and we have this. I think I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use, and we have also the hollow one. All right, so let's say if we are doing something on plan and we want to show the hollow slab, I'm going to use this one so that we see what it does. All right, so I can click on OK, and we have that family in there. All right, so you can actually hit on the space bar to turn that. So let's say if I was using it inside of the wall, right, I can actually put this in there, and then I can click in there and put all of these detail components in there. When you click on the drop down menu, Revit is going to give you a whole lot of sizes. So my wall is 150 mm, so you can see it fits exactly in there, and it has the height of 1200 in there, so you notice it fits perfectly in there. So I'm going to draw this to somewhere around here. All right, so now you have to take the pain to continue to draw all of this, also repeating that to go all the way up in there. All right, so that's just by the way. So that's how you can actually use your detail component. So now we know we have some hollow bricks in there, in this wall, in this part of the wall, which is concrete and hollow bricks. Maybe we want to pass in some pipes, and this is actually the section. So it's just something we are using for the tutorial, right? So we have, this is how you can use that detail component. Now let me show you guys how you can use the repeating detail component. Now you notice with this, I'll have to place it one by one by one. All right, so with the repeating detail component, when I just click once and I stretch it in there, it's going to repeat this same thing to the end. All right, so I'm going to click on repeating detail components, and you notice in there we just have brick, all right, in there. All right, so we can go back in there, and we can just, let's say we can just draw, let's just draw. Before we draw, let's just go into edit type in there, and with the detail I'm going to change this to the brick to 150. This is fine. Hit on apply, hit on OK. All right, so I have this in there. So now let's say I'm going to draw all the way from here to the top. Now you notice it's stacking all of those details up in there. You notice it's stacking all of them up in there one by one in there. All right, if I should change this horizontally, change this, is also stacking all of those up in there. All right, so this is how that repeating details works. It's going to be repeating all of those details. All right, that's what it does in there. So you notice mine repeats it horizontally, but I wanted it vertically. Now when you want that vertically, you need to make sure you load in the vertical one inside. All right, or you can change the rotation. All right, we want it maybe 90 clockwise. Let's change the rotation. Let's see what we have in there. So let me just click in there, and you notice it's repeating that in the clockwise form. But this is not pretty much good in there, because it's like it's stacking all of it up on one another. So with this, let's say it repeats 1200. Nope. So you need to make sure you load the vertical one in, and then you can use that inside of the Revit software. All right, so that is what the repeating detail component stands for, and the detail component also stands for. So when you load in the detail, you can use the repeating detail component, and also use the detail component to actually draw out your details inside of Revit. All right, so now you're going to notice there's one very cool thing in there which they call the insulation button line. All right, so you can actually use that to show or hatch the walls, which is going to be very, very nice. It's going to give you a nice representation of the walls, which is going to show that these walls have been insulated. All right, now you're going to find that on the annotate tab, and you're going to just click on this icon in there, insulation button line. All right, so now we have the insulation width, which is set to 80, and we obviously know our line width is 150. All right, so I'm going to change this to 150, and I'm going to draw this in there, and then I'm going to end this somewhere around here. All right, so you notice I have this simple insulation button line in there. That is if I didn't specify this to the wall. So let's say if I have my wall in there, I can use this insulation button line, and then use this to actually draw out that detail to show that this part of the wall is being insulated for some reason in there. All right, so this is how you can use that insulation button line. This comes in very useful. It's very, very handy. So now I can click on this in there, and you're going to notice in here we have this going all the way in circles inside of this. All right, so now you notice, let's say if I want to reduce that circles in there, so what I can do is I can select this, and you notice in here we have the insulation bulge to width ratio. So if I should change this to 5, it's going to reduce that in there. Now you notice it reduces that in there. Now if you should print this out, it's actually going to be kind of like way too close. So I do not really touch this thing. I always leave this at let's say 3. I always leave it at the default 3, and when you print this out, it's going to come out marvelously and perfectly well inside of your Revit software. All right, yeah, so I do not touch that in there. All right, so we are going to end here, and we are going to continue the next part, which we are going to be getting into more serious stuff inside of the Revit software. All right, so please do make sure you subscribe to my channel, make sure you like this video, and if you have any comments, you can drop them in the comment section as well, and I'll do what to respond to each and every single one out there. And I'll catch you guys in the next part of this series. Peace out. I'm still working real hard on a Saturday. A future I don't see from a mile away.